shine, Nigeria. Good morning. Welcome to the morning brief. I'm Kayode Okikilu.
And I'm Jeffrey Uzon. I was actually waiting for Bukola because, you know, she inspires us every morning with those things. I don't know where she commits memory. She commits it to memory and just delivers it every morning. But, well, maybe I caught up on her today. Hey, good morning and welcome to the program.
Thank you, Jeffrey. You know, it's February the 6th already, and I wonder where the time went. But we're not necessarily counting the days, but making the days to count. And that's exactly what we do on the morning brief. It's a calling for you to chase your dreams and make your days count. I am Bukola Koka. Welcome to the morning brief.
It looks like February is not taking a cue from January. February just collected the baton and it's like, you know what, I'm heading to the finish line.
Yeah.
We're in the 6th day in the month of February already. Welcome to the show. We have a bumper package for you.
Exactly.
I wonder how the first day of the week went for you. Not to worry, this is the second day of the week. Tuesday can always be much better than Monday. So on the show this morning, here's a snippet of what we have for you. Now, with protests over the rising cost of living breaking out in Niger State, the big question is, can government act fast enough to ease the tough times, or we'll be seeing more protests in the coming days? Those are the questions. But in the meantime, while people struggle to fit in their living costs into their shrinking income, the government is also struggling with crude revenues. So we're talking micro and macroeconomics on the show today.
Yes, and that's a lot to look forward to. Also, there's a silent health hazard sweeping across major urban centers in the country. It's poor quality of the air we take into our body daily. And for states like Lagos, where data is being gathered, there's a lot of harmful particles in the air, no thanks to the dust generating sets, vehicle exhaust, and other harmful environmental factors. How are you taking, precautionary measures? Are you wearing your nose masks, particularly, when you drive across or you walk across areas, that throw up dust? You should be doing that.
Well, on the lighter side, we'll bring you the story of a former reality TV star who originally studied to be a medical radiographer, but is using our reality show platform and social media to live a dream of being a star. But that hasn't come without his own share or fair share of controversy, as is expected in that space.
Absolutely. So that's a snippet of what we have for you. Plus, of course, what is trending. As always, you can share your thought with us. Hashtag CTV Morning Brief on X, on Facebook, on Instagram, what have you. And of course, we have our WhatsApp number. So we're taking all your comments, videos. If you have newsworthy videos and messages, send them in. Let us put them out there to the world. There you go. That's our WhatsApp number. We're literally your next door buddies. Okay, you don't have to go through all of that hassle to reach us. Just go on WhatsApp, go on social media, and you can get access to us right here on the Morning Brief. So that's right. This is the Morning Brief, guys. I'm pumped. I'm psyched about today's episode.
I'm ready. I'm excited. There's a lot to talk about because this affects literally everybody, whether you're rich, you're poor, you're privileged, you're not privileged, you went to school or you didn't go to school, whatever strata of the economy you belong to, the things we'll be talking about today affects all of us, which is why we're excited, because as a country, we're beginning to look at a situation where we'll look for solution. The country has been through a lot. So the experts, the people in the know, will be able to guide us through all of the questions we're ready to raise today on the show.
And Jeffrey, I can't wait to do this. You have a demo for us, and you brought it right here.
Yes, the camera is going to pan now, zoom into it soon.
Yeah, take us through the steps of commodities that you have.
I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too early, but, these are basic commodities from every home, literally in Nigeria. So we're going to walk through the layers of these commodities, how much they were before, how much they are now. From the perspective of the people in the know, as we always say, as well as what you experience as a person. Okay, I can see that the camera is on it. Let's shift it. Oh boy. All right. Fantastic.
But Jeffrey, at least I know the type of gari that you eat at home now. That's a giveaway.
So those are the layers. So from beans, so from rice.
Isn't it true?
This is salt. This is gari. This is
yellow gari.
Is that yellow?
Okay, this is salt. This is gari.
Yellow Gary, right?
This is yellow Gary, yeah. This is rice, this is beans. Tomato, no, not tomato, no. Onion found itself somewhere at the top there. But I brought an extra one because I know the visibility is not right.
Yes.
Maybe the remaining thing is just pepper and... and
then we have a meal on our
hand. And that's honey beans also, by the way. Honey beans.
Wait a minute.
Bukola, we're not analyzing the kind of beans. It's just beans. Beans is fine. It's just
Gary. Look at Gary and the race of the Gary.
So this
I'm just trying to identify it properly for our viewers.
Yeah, so basically, since we're talking commodities this morning, we just needed to bring this to just show people exactly.
And give the breakdown.
Especially for our international audience that may not be familiar with what we eat around here and all of that. So that's basically what it's all about.
Okay, so there is a byproduct of cassava.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and that conversation is important because we usually spend about 60% of our income on food. So we'll talk a lot about this. We'll give you some brighter side and, of course, what is happening on social media. So we'll take a moment now, and when we return, we'll bring you the top stories that will be shaping the conversation for the day and perhaps the week. That's in a moment. Stay with us on The Morning Brief. Top stories on The Brief at this hour. Another week, another kidnap incident. It's almost like clockwork at this rate, as 13 passengers traveling in 2 buses from Umaya to Abuja have been kidnapped on Inele Teke Ogugu New Road in Kogi East Senatorial District. Now, the Kogi State Police Command spokesperson, SP William Aya, told our correspondent in Lokoja, the state capital, that 12 passengers from the GIG bus and 2 from a Sienna bus belonging to ABC Transport were kidnapped. But the driver of a GIG Motors was later rescued by security operatives. He adds that the Commissioner of Police has deployed a tactical squad, which consists of Quick Response Unit, Police Mobile Force, Counter-Terrorism Unit, as well as conventional police personnel to the area to continue with the bush combing, in addition to vigilantes and hunters. Now, I will continue to follow that story and hope for some cheery outcome. On the flip side, however, the Federal Capital Territory Police Command is again warning criminals to stay away from the nation's capital with a vow to deal with perpetrators of criminal acts. This warning is coming from the Commissioner of Police in the FCT, Mr. Benneth Igwe, who was addressing a news conference in Abuja while parading 6 suspects allegedly responsible for the kidnapping of a couple in Ido on the outskirts of the nation's capital. Now, the suspects are made up of 4 males and 2 females. Well, away from security, it's the day after what seemed like a spontaneous protest which erupted in Niger State as people blocked major roads within the metropolis to vent their anger over what they say is a high cost of living in the state. Now, in response to that, Governor Umaru Bago has banned mass purchase of grains from local markets in the state as he appeals to the people that government is not unaware of the hardship in the land. But the protesters had blamed what they described as government's failure to arrest the situation as a reason for the blockade to ensure government hears their cry.
We had restiveness of youth and women in Bakungu, and this was unfortunate. They were yearning and clamoring for reduction in price of food. However, since that time, we've been in a series of meetings, and we have discovered a latest happening in town and in Nigeria. So we have been talking to the Union of Road Transport Workers to take caution. A group of syndicates follow truck of food traveling from Lagos, mostly to the north, and they cause gridlock of traffic in name of demonstration in locations like ours today in an attempt to cause heavy traffic while items of those trucks are looted. But thank God for the men of our security forces. That was averted. Trucks that were heading towards this location were stopped to park before the university in Gideon Mongoro, and security men came and dispersed these rioting people. However, the federal government has shown interest. I've spoken to the Vice President, I've spoken to the NSA on the current situation, and we're on top of it.
As a search for a possible solution to the economic situation in the country continues, political economist Tomi is preferring a possible solution to those challenges facing the nation, particularly the value of the naira. Now, Professor Tomi, who attributes the fall in the value of the naira to the production deficit in Nigeria, calls on those he describes as a lazy elite to go beyond rent-seeking and do the real job of contributing to the economy.
People say, Nigeria, Naira is collapsing, this. And I'm hearing all kinds of conversations that don't get to the root of why Naira is in trouble. Naira is in trouble because we do not produce. This is something I've talked about for years. But a lazy elite focused on how can we extract rent has not managed to put his mind to it. Now that it's happening to us and we're seeing it, perhaps this is the time to get everybody's attention.
More stories now. Operatives of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, that's the EFCC, have arrested the General Overseer of Faith on the Rock Ministry International, Apostle Theophilus Alo for allegedly defrauding church members and other Nigerians using fake grants from the Ford Foundation to the tune of 1,319 million naira. Now, a statement by EFCC's head of media and publicity, Dele Oyewale, says Mr. Bonyi was arrested for allegedly defrauding his victims, comprising non-government organizations and individuals, by advertising an intervention project through his NGO called Theophilus Global Foundation, claiming that Ford Foundation is offering a grant of $20 million. That's, in fact, $20 billion to assist the less privileged in the society. Now, the statement adds that he allegedly beguiled his victims to subscribe as beneficiaries to the phony grant by asking them to pay for registration forms and clusters, with each subscriber made to pay 1,800,000 naira. Now, there's more. If you have a taste for these kinds of alcoholic beverages in small packs and sachets, well, it is now illegal to produce and consume such products, effective from 6 days ago, actually. That's January the 31st. And that's according to the National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, which says it has commenced the enforcement of the ban on importation, manufacture, distribution, sale, and use of alcoholic beverages in sachets, PET, and glass bottles of 200 milligrams and below. Now, the Director General of NAFDAC, Professor Mojisola Adeyeye in Abuja, said this process began in 2022 when the agency stopped the registration of the product and ordered a complete phase-out by 2024. Now, she also adds that over 50% of medicines and medical ingredients imported into Nigeria are either substandard or falsified, accusing the majority of the pharmaceutical companies in India and China of colluding with importers to undermine the health of Nigerians.
Most of our medicines come from Southeast Asia, and they belong to the member states too. We have a scheme where before medicines that we have approved leave that part of the world, we do pre-shipment testing. And that pre-shipment testing is supposed to come with certificates of pharmaceutical product. Meaning, it's supposed to assure us that what we are getting is good. But that's not the case. Because through our scheme, we have been able to stop over 140 products that we approved.
Now, the African Development Bank is set to commence the disbursement of $550 million to 8 states in the first phase of the development of special agro-industrial processing zones, that's SAPZs. Now, this was disclosed when a delegation of the bank and the United Nations Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO, presented their separate reports on the status of projects to Vice President Kashim Shettima at the presidential villa. Now, the Vice President called for immediate action, saying it is time for the government and its development partners to walk the talk and ensure food security in line with the vision of President Bola Tinubu. And now to sports news. Let's bring you news from the Super Eagles camp ahead of tomorrow's very crucial semi-final encounter against South Africa. Now, there may be concerns, real concerns, over the fitness of striker Victor Osimhen after he missed the team's flight due to reported abdominal discomfort. Now, a statement from the team reads, put on Twitter, it reads, members of the team traveled from Abidjan to Bouaké today. That was yesterday via 10 p.m. Air Côte d'Ivoire flight. Now, Osimhen did not, however, make the trip as a result of an abdominal discomfort. Team medics confirmed that he has been placed under close watch with a member of the medical team staying behind in Abidjan with him. Well, if cleared by tomorrow morning, that's this morning, then he will join the rest of the squad before 5 p.m. Well, the Napoli talisman has started all of the 5 Super Eagles, 5 Africa Cup of Nations matches, scoring and assisting once, but he was stretched off in stoppage time in the 1-0 win over Angola in the quarterfinal. So, hey, fingers crossed, but most importantly, we wish Osimhen the very best. Now, following the shocking revelation that King Charles has been diagnosed with a type of cancer, the BBC reports that the King will pause his public events, although he will continue with his paperwork and private meetings. It is understood that his weekly audiences with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak will continue and will be in person. That's unless his doctors advise that he limits such contact. He joins 1,000 people a day in the United Kingdom who are diagnosed with cancer, with the #1 risk factor being age. He has since begun treatment as goodwill pours in from world leaders, presidents, religious heads, politicians, and many more. So those are the top stories on the morning brief this morning. Let's now bring you what is trending across all social media platforms. I'm, of course, joined by Bukola to walk through all of the trends this morning. Bukola.
Yes, Kayode, and I'm quite fascinated by your nose mask.
Yeah, so, and that begins the trends for us this morning. It's quite interesting what is going around these days. Now, a statement by LASEPA on social media got a lot of people worried. Now, they've been releasing the air quality index across Lagos for some days now. And this is what LASEPA says now. The air quality index captured in Lagos, that was yesterday, 5th of February 2024, says, while the air quality may not be optimal, rest assured that LASEPA is working tirelessly to enhance the state's air quality. But you might just see those figures as just mere figures, right? Because you see areas like Ojo. By the way, the ones that rank the highest on that list, you see. Let's just give you a breakdown of this. The areas in Lagos that rank highest from there. There you see Ojo, the biggest culprit they might see in the air quality in Ojo, just 180. That is huge. It is high. And if you see the breakdown just by that, it means that is hazardous. It is hazardous. It is not fit to be inhaled by humans, literally. You have Bariga also not doing too good when it comes to air quality. Agege with 113. Now, these are really high figures. So the import of this, Bukola, which is what we wanted to just show to our audiences, it's not enough to actually use the usual face masks that a lot of people used during COVID, the simple face mask. Okay. What this means is that this is a kind of mask that will work in these areas, this dust particle masks, and that is concerning. And
this is more enduring, more long-lasting, and
it protects more.
Less susceptible to gathering dust, unlike the cloth-like face masks. So perhaps you should get this one in the coming days. But beyond the statistics, Kadi, the weather speaks for itself. Dusty, hazy, and the wind is raising the dust, practically. Terrible. And people are exposed to all sorts of respiratory infections. So we must protect ourselves.
And you may have seen that trend, people coming up with all of these things. It speaks to the air quality. The question is, what can we do? There's a lot we can do. We have talked about these things time and again. The pollutions should end, from vehicle pollution, the carbon pollutions, generating sets, and the rest. Yeah, we know the challenge we face in our nation, Nigeria, but this is a point where we need to look more into green energy, sustainable energy. I mean, it's for our own good, absolutely. So we need to pay attention to this. And I'm talking from government to people. We can't continue moving around and taking in hazardous air. It affects our health, affects life expectancy. Bukola.
Absolutely. Even though we are low carbon emitters, government must begin to look inwards, particularly with the legislation that now empowers states, to explore their power potential. So what are the subnationals also doing to tapping into the resources available such that there can be green energy as an alternative to, what we currently
big questions.
Use.
Fantastic points you made there, Bukola. So please stay safe. Ensure that you protect yourself, all right? We love you here. And we want you to stay safe out there. So your face mask, if you're asthmatic, if you're elderly, if you're even a child, ensure that you protect your children out there because the weather or the air quality isn't doing quite well for us, particularly in Lagos and other parts. I was seeing data that even in the nation's capital, Abuja, where you think, lots of, trees, scenery and all of that, even the air quality is bad.
Trees.
Trees. Plant trees,
What's
by the way.
What's happening to our tree planting?
I shudder to think what is happening in other states where data is not being gathered. So it's important for you to begin to ask your state government, what is it with the air quality right here in our state? So that's something we just wanted to bring to you to ensure that you're safe this morning. Absolutely.
Speaking of trends, Kayode, Ogun State is mourning, and indeed the entire nation, following the passing of Jimmy Solanke, poet, actor, singer. He's the total performer. Let me bring to you some of the tweets, posts, trailing his passing yesterday, 49 days, I believe, to his 82nd birthday. This is from the Deputy Governor of Ogun State. I extend my deepest condolences to the widow, family, and friends of a veteran actor, poet, playwright, singer-songwriter, the indefatigable Jimmy Solanke. He died earlier today, that was yesterday, at the age of 81. I recall Pa Solanke's storytelling from my childhood in Ibadan. And as I said at the event arranged by the Ogun State government to mark his 80th, he was our Instagram, our YouTube. If she said that, in my own generation, he was also our entertainer. I remember Storyland, land of music, fun and tales. Storyland, bring your friends along. He presented that program, and he made our childhood.
Absolutely, it's
so
been
he
described.
Will be sorely missed. God, do you remember that song?
Much more, actually. The ones he did in Yoruba.
Okay.
That was not just for children. They talked about life. They talked about, the culture, the ethics. I mean, just beautiful to see those videos come up again, to see those songs now trending now. It just speaks to how great a man he was and the legacy that will be and continue to be. He was our Instagram, absolutely, you can say that again. He was our Instagram, Facebook, when we didn't have to be staring at screens all day. This was a man who shaped a lot of childhoods. We have Gbadebo Rhodes Vival, the Labour Party governorship candidate in Lagos, also speaking to that effect, saying, I extend my... Well, he said he's heartbroken, by the way, by the news of the passing of Jimmy Solanke. He says, I grew up watching Jimmy Solanke tell beautiful stories, and it was a huge part of the fond memories I have of my childhood. He was a master in the art of storytelling. He'll be deeply missed. Says, rest on, Uncle Jimmy. The angels will be waiting for you to tell them so many beautiful stories. And,
musician, beautiful Nubia, simply says, Baba, and that is accompanied by the love emoji. Yeah.
So that's what beautiful Nubia says. In peace. Absolutely. And of course, our hearts with his family and people, of course, who love him, people like you, who would sorely miss him. But we can take solace in the fact that he left such a beautiful
huge legacy. Yeah. Thank you, Baba Jimmy Solanke.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. There's a lot more trending on social media. And I think the protest, by the way, that's the one from beautiful Nubia. I just put Baba and the love emoji. And, of course, the picture of Baba Jimmy Solanke. So
more trends now, Kayode. You want to start?
Absolutely. The protest has been making waves. Just on X alone, the tweet which Channels Television put up on X of that protest has gotten thousands of comments. And it just speaks to the point of why this is touching at a major pain point of Nigerians. So let's take a look at what you're saying about that protest which erupted in Niger State. Questions about, was this spontaneous? How did this happen just all of a sudden on a Monday morning? A lot of people were rushing to work and they saw that the roads, major roads in Niger State were blocked, and they're wondering what is going on. Was this an organic protest? Does it have a political inkling? But the people say, well, we're protesting because of the rising cost of living. You heard the governor of Niger State speaking there about that protest, and hey, that is what it is. So let's take a look at what you're saying on that one. From, of course, sarcasm to others. You see this one from Omoba Ademola saying, Tinubu is working. He needs time. So you're not really sure if that is sarcasm, if the person really means it. I'm talking Omoba Ademola, that's Shileola on X, saying Tinubu is working. He needs time. The question is, how much time, how much work is being done? How do we place this particular comment on social media? I'll leave you to just make
to decide
choice.
that, right? This one is from Pearl, and they say, I hope we get notice. We're all in this together. It's not quite clear what he means either, or what they mean. Is it sarcasm? Is it protest? I think it's significant to ask. But the last line is instructive. We're all in this together.
Absolutely.
And it's affecting everyone.
No one is immune.
From, I don't know if I should say government, because they don't queue to buy fuel, neither do they have to go to the market, to buy foodstuff. So to a large extent, they may be immune to, the realities of the increasing prices of commodities. Speaking of which, the response of the governor of Niger State to what's happening in the state, is, causes, for you to reflect on it. Will it solve the problem? Is it infringing on the fundamental human rights of the people to prevent those who can afford it to buy foodstuff on, in good quantity? Because sometimes that approach is also saves you buying every now and then you can, manage your finances better.
But in the times we're in, rationing might also work. You've seen in cases, other clients, when there's scarcity, when demand outweighs supply, then they find a way to ration it so it goes round. But take a look at what Aliyu Gimba on this says. They have the right to protest. There's so much hardship in the land. People are frustrated and depressed. It's just unbearable. But I don't support the idea of blocking roads for other users. So that's what Aliyu Gimba has to say about this one. Just try to speak on both sides of this particular conversation.
Away from protests now, there's also a conversation on the national grid. And Jude is speaking. He says, many Nigerians are now using solar to complement, but the solar itself is expensive due to the exchange rate. The problem in this country is going beyond repair. Who's listening?
Oh, we got to repair this thing because it's like a vehicle that is conveying all of us to a destination. If we don't fix it,
we'll all be stranded, right?
Absolutely. Take a look at Lanre Waju, still on the national grid. Lanre Waju is given, 2 kobo. I was tempted to say 2 cents. You should not spend dollar in Nigeria. Okay? Use a legal tender here in Nigeria. It says electricity that we were managing before. But it says it's in pidgin. Electricity where we didn't even manage before. It says shake my head. So
shaking my head.
It wasn't the very best, and then it got worse. So you just made a bad situation worse with the national grid collapsing, and people are just telling tales of how they're struggling now. Epileptic power supply. Imagine the small businesses, the homes. You wonder how they're getting by right now with even worse than usual power supply.
So that means they have to purchase more fuel in order to power their homes.
That's if they can afford it or if they have a generating set.
Again, it goes back to, the point about managing your finances. There's some who purchase their protein en masse and they keep, this, protein in the freezer. When there is no power supply, it's sure to, get spoiled, and then there's waste. So
important.
These are big issues for households.
Absolutely.
And for the food on their table.
Yeah. So where's the Minister of Power? I mean, we have a whole ministry overseeing power. What is being done? Questions need to be answered by the Minister of Power and others who are in government? When will we get to the decentralization which we have talked about, which has been approved? By the way, we'll have that conversation today on the show. Also, Omo Niger Nomad says, do you want to take that?
Yes, and he says, or they say, there has been no light in my area since 3 weeks. I think yours is better. Well, in Nigeria, light is the word used to describe power.
Yeah.
So there's been no light in my area since 3 weeks. There are some areas in Nigeria, I believe, that have not had power supply in years. Yeah, very many areas like that in years.
Oh dear.
So in 3 weeks, I think it's a blessing that you should be grateful for, within the Nigerian context anyway. That's not the usual situation in other parts of the world.
But it's not what it should be. Let us know where you are, by the way, Omo Niger Nomad. Let us know your area. I know it's a typical Nigerian thing to compare. Say, yours is actually good, mine is worse. But let us know your area so we can amplify this. So, Omo Niger Nomad, we look forward to you telling us your area. But let's move to another thing that has been making the rounds. A big story. We talked about that during our top stories. And that is the ban on sachet alcoholic beverages. Yeah, I know.
Right.
This would elicit lots of reactions. By the way, this started as far back as 2022. And at that point, it looked like the government had actually banned it, but it never left the street. So it was just yesterday that the NAFDAC DG, Professor Mujsala Diaye, gave an insight into what happened then, which a lot of people wanted to know. I thought it was a total ban, but she said, no, well, the plan was we'll stop registration then and phase it out. So they were meant to reduce production by 5% and progressively stop it by January the 31st. So in case you had questions about why those things were still in the market, that seems to explain it. But take a look at what Nigerians are saying about this. The real Murphy, it's a big conversation, I tell you. The real Murphy says, at least Agbiru and laborers go rest from littering. So that's another challenge that these caused. Lot of littering. You could check through the trash. I see these items, from the sachets to tiny bottles, form a major part of the trash on the road, on the street. So this is one of the good sides to it.
The breakfast of many transporters has been taken away.
For good reason.
That's their breakfast.
Yeah, sadly.
Before they set out early in the morning. But the truth is, what are the implications? At what cost to the lives of commuters who rely on them for transportation, for their safety, every other day? What happened, by the way, also to that proposition some time ago for alcohol tests to be carried out on transporters, drivers? Yes. Good question at this point in time. Bayo says, very good decision. Are you taking that one? Okay, very good decision. It will save many motorists and passengers.
Amen to that. So let's just rush through this. There's a lot being talked about. Elvis, the menace, says, okay, so they'll just put them in plastic bottles then. So it doesn't quite solve the problem for Elvis right there. There's a lot to talk about on this one. But
are we introducing more non-biodegradables, plastic bottles? Well, I don't know about that.
Gosh.
The next one, this one is from Makanaki, and he says, too many fake ones outside. Many are gone because of these drinks.
Yeah. So it's important to raise that point because you see children, underage people actually purchasing these things, and it's easy to conceal. You purchase it, you put it in your pocket, nobody knows you're carrying alcohol. It's just been a menace. So there you go. That is, those are some of the things that are trending for you this morning. Of course, King Charles is also trending with the diagnosis of cancer, the announcement that he's been diagnosed with a type of cancer. Well, the BBC says, no, it's not prostate cancer. But of course, you understand that they're concerned about the King's health. Kilmi Additional, the AFDB chief, has this to say about the King's health, saying, Your Majesty, dear King Charles III, I wish you a speedy and full recovery. You are in my heart and prayers.
And Cardinal Nichols is also talking about the King's health diagnosis, and he says, I am saddened to learn that King Charles is now facing a time of treatment for cancer. On behalf of the entire Catholic community in England and Wales, I offer His Majesty our warmest wishes and assurance of steadfast prayers for his full and speedy recovery. God bless the King. Amen.
Amen. I know in the midst of all of this, there were talks, different talks about just how transparent this was, and people drawing inference and the rest. But yeah, it's important to learn and all of that, but keep sight on all that is important as well. So those are the trends for you this morning. We'll begin our very first conversation. It concerns the money in your pocket, the money in your bank account, how you're approaching these really tricky times. That's the conversation we're having next, and we'll bring all of the figures and the commodities to you in a moment.
Stay with us, we'll be right back.
So let's break this down. Sheyo Mudiara joins us live in our Lagos studio. Is a financial analyst, senior associate, Venture Garden Group. Hi, Sheyo. Good morning.
Good morning, Kayode.
Nigerians are protesting, if not on the streets, some protest in the markets. When they see the price of commodities, they protest right there. Some are protesting on social media. Some are protesting in the homes. Husbands, wives, family members just protesting and saying, well, things are quite tough. So there's some sort of protest happening around. And it just begs the question, I want to know what you think about this, because you see the figures. Look at what happened yesterday in Niger state. It seemed spontaneous, but a lot of them were literally speaking the minds of a lot of Nigerians. And you could see the reaction on social media. So I'd like to get a sense of how you're interpreting all of this, because yes, there is the emotions of this, but then there's the data of all of this as well. The rising cost of living. Some have called it the cost of living crisis in Nigeria. What's your interpretation of it?
That's an interesting question, Kayode. And if we look at the underlying reasons behind this rising cost of living, we see that there are a myriad of underlying factors at play here. The first one being the insecurity in the food basin of the country. Now, this has been a recurring problem. We have seen news of killings in Plateau State, in Kaduna State, And this is where most of our food comes from. When you see things like tomatoes, for example, it's a staple. I mean, you can't prepare your stew or soups without your tomatoes, and
except you're Yoruba and you love pepper.
of course. So, I mean, with all of that, it means that farmers are constrained. People are unable to go to farms. And subsequently, it means that harvests will be much lower than what the expected supply should be. Our population is growing, which means that even if supply remains the same, and with population growth, it means that you still do not have enough to meet your food requirements. And because of that, we know with increasing demand and, say, stable supply, prices will go up. That's just laws, those laws of economics, and that's one of the factors at play here. Whether or not that's going to be solved, that's something else entirely, but it's one of the underlying reasons. The other thing is we have such erratic power supply. Now, producers of FMCG products have, if you look through their operational expenses, you get to see that maybe about 20 to 30% of that goes towards utilities, especially power, and that cost needs to be passed on to someone ultimately, and that's the final consumer. Because we don't have lots of, substitutes for some of these things, you end up seeing that people either end up buying, say, lower quantities than what they usually purchase, or ultimately stop buying these things altogether because, again, things are hard. Things are just generally hard, and that's one of the other things we are dealing with. The third thing is the FX pass-through. We have seen the way the Naira has depreciated substantially over the past year or so, trading at about 1,400 Naira to the dollar. We are an import-dependent country. We do not produce enough. Exports are much harder in Nigeria. It's way harder to export things in Nigeria. You end up hearing things like it's much harder or it's much more expensive to transport goods from the farms all the way through to the ports than it is from the ports to where you're exporting it to.
Okay.
Yeah. So when you consider all these things, you end up saying that, there's no way the inflation will not skyrocket eventually. It's almost at 30% now, so that's official data. Unofficial data, something else entirely. So, yeah, those are some of the underlying reasons behind the cost of living crisis.
So one will wonder, because I was looking, I always go back to people's agenda when they make promises. And so whenever we have conversations about our macroeconomics, I try to look at the president's agenda, and I see that in his 80-page mandate or agenda, he talked about diagnosing the cause, which for him, according to that document, is more of cost push and all of that, driven by the supply side, basically. And you mentioned the fact that the disruptions in our security architecture has caused all of this. So everybody's now looking, how do we get ourselves out of this now that we seem to have an idea of what the problem is? It looks like every time we have a conversation, excuse me, we're talking about what caused it. How do we get ourselves out of it?
So, there's the monetary side to things, and then there's the fiscal policy side of things. On the monetary side, we have seen the ways and means advances, for example, being breached. Typically now we are aware that the mandate is the federal government cannot lend more than 5% of its revenues from the prior year to fund budget deficits. Now, this has been consistently breached over time.
It has even increased, as a matter of fact.
It has increased, yes.
15% now.
You see, and with that constant printing of money, you end up seeing that our broad money supply has grown to about almost 80 trillion naira. I think as of December, it was about 78, 79 trillion. That's significantly more than what it was in December 2022. It was at about 56 trillion, I believe, or about 52 trillion rather. That's more than 50% increase from where it was in December 2022. So you see that, and then your economy is not growing at the same rate. Money supply has grown by, if my numbers are correct, about 17 or 18 times more than the growth of the economy. For you to have at least stable inflation or controlled inflation, the economy has to grow at right about the same rate at which your money supply is growing. That's not happening here. And that's one of the fundamental reasons behind the skyrocketing inflation we have seen. So to deal with that, the first thing is we need to go back to basics. The monetary authority now, that's the CBN, needs to use CRR to mop up all of this excess liquidity with the banks. They need to increase interest rates. The T-bills, the last NTB auctions, for example, we saw that the one-year T-bill traded at, I think, about 11.5%. Inflation is at 30%. There's no way you're going to get FDIs or FPIs rather to come into the country at that disparity is just too much. Why would I be investing and getting returns of 11.5% when your inflation rate is at 30%? For you to get investors, that interest rate has to be more than what your rate of inflation is. It's just the basics, and that's one of the things that needs to happen. Money supply needs to be mopped up. The CBN also needs to get its hands out of all of the intervention funding that it's doing. They've done a lot of direct investing, lending for financial or infrastructure development, for instance. All these anchor borrower programs, all of that needs to stop. And that's some of the things that we need to do on the monetary side. Now, on the fiscal side, that's beyond the mandate of the CBN now. There needs to be all of the oil bunkering that's happening. We need to fix that. We cannot have investors coming in and then you see that your main source of revenue is being stolen. That's one thing. All of the oil and gas projects that are happening across the country at least the ones that are close to completion, actually need to be completed so that we can have stable gas supply, which might also improve our power supply as well. So those are some of the things that we need to do, both on the monetary side and on the fiscal side, to make sure that some of these problems that we are seeing can go away.
Well, beyond all of those mathematical calculations, and the response of government, the people are at the receiving end. And we see what happened in Niger State. In Kaduna also, bakers protested the rising price of flour. And let me just go through a list that I have here. Rice, 50 kg is 63,000 naira for a bag. Flour is 50,000 naira, and it rose from 28,000 naira. Just to mention two commodities. What should the people be doing now? Are they left without options? Just to go through the excruciating hardship, and also the response of the Niger State government. I ask again, doesn't it infringe on the right of people who want to manage their finances? For you to say they should stop buying food en masse.
You can't tell people to not buy food. And there's this saying now that's really popular. I wouldn't say amongst Nigerians, but at least within my circle, where we say that you cannot delay gratification in Nigeria anymore, because typically we would say that, you can save up for whatever it is you want to buy later, and then, just do the necessities now. But the thing is, even the necessities are really expensive, that people would rather buy and stock up because they know prices tomorrow will be much higher than they are today. The problem with stocking up also now is we don't have stable power supply. So even if I want to stock up on perishables, they end up perishing. So that's So we are between the devil and the deep blue sea. Which one can I afford? So would I rather stock up and hope that I can afford? I am able to more or less use up the available stock before a significant portion of it goes bad, or can I wait and buy in bits and then just take on whatever price increase I see tomorrow? That's where we are today. To solve, you can't say people should not buy food. And even if we go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and it's quite sad because we see that Nigerians are still on that base level of feeding, housing, security. That's where we are. So people can't even dream to say, oh, they want to do other things like self-actualization and chasing these grand visions that they might have for their lives. That's where we are today. And it's quite sad that the government take that stance of people should not buy food or should not buy in bulk or something like that. It's just, I don't know, it's plain old ridiculous. That's my position.
It's just its way of ensuring that the ration, or at least the little supply, gets across to people.
Yeah.
We've seen rationing in other climes saying, no, you can't buy beyond 5 liters if it's maybe petrol, or 20 liters, and everybody has to move up because they know a lot of people hoard and the rest.
Yeah.
But Jeffrey has this Jeffrey's hierarchy of commodities.
Pyramid.
Of sorts. And this is to speak to the individuals out there. We can talk a lot about what we want government to do, and rightly so. The government has its job cut out for it, and talking from the federal to the state and the local. This is not a time to be doing business as usual. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and we'll keep talking about that. But also we need to equip the Nigerian out there with, well, I say survival skills now, guys. Because
survival toolkits.
Right, these are really interesting times that it takes a different approach to spending for you to be able to survive, or at least still have some semblance of a good lifestyle. So the average Nigerian, they say, there's a minimum wage, but we know that the average salary is not the minimum wage, according to data, and you can speak to that. So for the average salary earner, the Nigerian watching us right now and has maybe earned the salary for January.
It's over now.
Oh, wow. That's gone already. Wow, okay. But at least has gotten some sort of salary, let's say 30,000, 100,000, you still speak to what the average is. How do you expect the average Nigerian to budget now such that they can still survive and at least have a semblance of a very good life in this period?
Okay, so I think to talk about the numbers, I might need to refer to, there was this report that the savings app PiggyVest conducted sometime last year, about October or November last year. And they had from different demographics, from the Gen Zs to the baby boomers, and they just needed to get a sense of how much people are actually earning. And they found out that about 71% of Nigerians earn about 249,000 or less.
I know that was quite controversial then.
Yeah, it was. And the reason it was is, number one, people who use the app itself need access to smartphones and access to internet. What's our internet penetration? What's our smartphone penetration in Nigeria? So it means that that's probably still not the reality.
Not representative as much.
Exactly. So it means that there's a likelihood that that number might be even lower than what was actually represented in that report. So if 71% of Nigerians are earning about 249,000 or less, that creates a big problem, because you look at the cost of food, for instance. Food makes up about 60% of our CPI basket. And that's what majority of Nigerians actually spend their money on currently. That's the worst in the world. I compared with the likes of the US, they're at about 6.5, the UK, Singapore, and some other countries. It's not up to 10% that their people spend on food, which means they have a lot more discretionary income to use towards other things. They are able to actually live lives that they love. We don't get to do that, because when you spend about 60% of your income on food, what's left? Nothing more, really.
So rent, transport.
So there's rent, transport, there's the
flex,
utilities.
What do we call it?
So
flexing is a luxury now.
Yeah. So so we spend so much on basics that we don't even have enough to even start saying, oh, okay, let me go out and enjoy myself. You can't do that anymore. It's a lot harder for Nigerians these days. I mean, after food, we have utilities, for example, and then you have housing, and then you have transportation. Yeah, those are the 4 leading things that Nigerians spend their money on. And if you say you want to advise people, will you advise them not to eat? I don't know. So I'm not sure it's going to change too much in that regard. And it's sad, because it would be nice to actually be able to do things beyond just bare necessities. But that's the reality we have today.
So are you saying that we are below the bottom, or we're close to below the bottom, and Nigeria is building an elitist society? Is that what you're saying? Because if the basics, whether you're looking at Maslow's hierarchy of need, whether you're looking at Harodoma's policy of good income that will affect capital stock, all of this talks to basics. So are we below the bottom, or we're close to it? Because, no, I'm curious.
To be fair, that's where we are, and that's the reality of things. I mean, for some of us here, we might not be as close. I won't say we are not going to be as close, because really, you just need to walk 5 or 10 minutes away from where you stay to see the actual reality of how people live. On my way here this morning, I still saw people sleeping on the bridges. That's how bad things are, and it's probably gotten worse. You see children on the streets now. There are a lot more people who are begging. You see people rapping on car windows, asking for, oh, please just 100 naira, please just 200 naira. I haven't eaten today. And you realize that 200 naira might not be a lot of money to us here, but it's a lot of money to Nigerians out there.
Which is why I'm asking whether we're building an elitist society. So, do you understand?
Yeah.
Because some of us here may be a bit well off to afford some basics, but there are people out there who is like, the gap is widening, because we're curious about solving this problem. You can go on. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. No, I get you. And the Nigeria we are building, as things are as today, probably points towards building an elitist society, because you end up seeing that. But I wouldn't say that that's necessarily peculiar to Nigeria alone, because you would even see that during, say, the COVID, when we had all of these prohibitions and restrictions, that the wealth gap actually grew worldwide, and it wasn't just a Nigerian phenomenon. But where Nigeria differs from all of these other countries is that there are more or less structures in place to make sure that the people do not suffer too much. There are social nets that allow people, okay, if things go bad, I have these things to fall on. We don't have those in Nigeria, and that's probably why you end up seeing the increase in crime rates, for example, because people know that if they don't eat, if they don't survive, then if they don't have the means to survive, they are going to have to find a means to survive. And that's probably where we are. That's the reality.
That's a hard truth. But speaking of what can be done, the Minister of Finance had cause to answer that question yesterday from reporters, and he said that the president's intervention is to the extent that they're expecting harvest from wheat farming that began to be conducted from about last year, and there's also other agricultural interventions. I wonder how far that can go if you consider the cost of transportation that will go on these commodities when we do get that harvest. In addition to that, what can the state governments do in the area of agriculture, in the Southwest, for instance, such that we're no longer talking about the cost of transportation from, the farms to the urban areas where these food commodities will eventually get to?
That's an interesting question. And for me personally, I think state governments, in particular, amongst themselves, actually need to stand up. There's a lot of dependence on the center, waiting for FAC allocations, waiting for money from Abuja so that they are able to meet what their own domestic demands are within their states. It's just that there's way too much pressure on the center, and that there needs to be a devolution in that respect. That needs to happen. And then there needs to be a lot more collaboration between the states. For instance, now, we know that a lot of food production happens in the north, like I said earlier. And then we have, you notice that many of the producers of food are smallholder farmers. We have transportation constraints. They are in remote areas, so we have transportation constraints. Roads aren't being built in those areas. We see the price of diesel, for example, which is what many of these trucks use as fuel in their food transport. That's not going away. So there might be that to deal with when it comes to costs. But in terms of infrastructural development, both the states and the local governments actually need to build the necessary infrastructure to make sure that in transporting goods from the farms, the infrastructure is there to make sure that there is no waste, or there is just about we're able to maximize the produce. Because if you see the way some of these foods are transported, tomatoes, for example, I'll go back to the tomatoes. We have baskets being stacked on each other, and then you see that the ones on the bottom they all get mashed up, and then they are unusable by the time that's even before you get out of the farms, and then you say you are transporting them all the way to the south. There needs to be a lot of R&D that needs to happen when it comes to things like yields, when it comes to even the number, the yields, and then the quality. Mm-hmm. Those two things actually need to improve. I know, I'm trying to remember now, but one I think was, I can't quite remember the name of the company now, sorry, but one of the FMCG companies actually, they've been trying to actually improve tomato yields and within their own greenhouse farms, and just to see exactly how that will pan out on a much larger scale. And these are some of the things that we need to develop, both, I mean, from the corporate side, that's on the private sector side, and then, of course, the government also needs to also provide the infrastructure.
It's quite interesting, really, because you see the numbers, you see the figures. We look at the NGX, and we see there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of harvest there.
It's not a bull run.
You know? Yeah. And then you look at the flip side, the macro, the individuals, and you're wondering, hey, are we in the same market? So maybe we need to compare notes and ensure that what is happening there happens with the people as well. But it's been quite instructive, really, speaking with you about these issues. Clearly, we cannot do without food. So keep spending 60% of our income on food, and hoping that some of the statements from a government, the Minister of Finance about food security will come to fruition. But we must thank you so much. This has been a tough interview because I was smelling onions as you were speaking, and I'm thinking, when will the food be ready? Shayomi Dira, financial analyst, senior associate, Venture Guardian Group. Thank you so much for your time on the show this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Right, we'll take a moment now. When we return, we turn our attention to that part of energy, right? You know, the power, the crude oil, the petrol, and all of that. They also form a major part of your income. So how is the government moving forward with this, with the challenges, and how are you, of course, expected to, will I say, grapple or thrive in these times? That's our next conversation. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Still the morning brief right here on Channels Television. We're now switching gears, but we're still talking products and things that concern our economy, and which is why we will be talking about the issue of crude oil production in Nigeria. And we can't do this all by ourselves. Of course, Kayode, I will leave this to you exactly to run through it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Let's talk to Dr. Ayodele Oni, This concerns everybody, by the way, but, you know, the experts have their view, they have the details, the figures, the regulations, and the rest. So we're joined on the program by Dr. Ayodele Oni, who is a commercial lawyer, energy law and policy, and partner Energy Practice Group, Bloomfield LP. Good morning, Dr. Oni. Thank you for joining us on the Morning Brief.
Thank you very much for having me.
You know, I was looking at a report, I think it was by the Daily Trust, talking about Nigeria grappling with meeting its oil production targets for 10 years now. So that's talking about budgets that are underfunded. We always have all of these budget, predictions and predications, but it's been tough to meet them. And it looks like we're going down that road yet again. There's been lots of legislations. We thought the PIA was going to be that game changer. Well, how much of the game it is changing is left out there to the jury to decide. But when you now look at the FX situation, and it's said that, well, it's obviously because we're not producing. What was very easy for us to produce before, oil, is now even tough, even though all we're doing is just drilling and exporting. So I wonder, for you as an expert in that field, you understand the legal framework and, of course, the economic angle, the operations as well. What do you see as the major challenge here, really?
Okay, I think challenges are historical. It's not today. First, we've had regulatory uncertainty. You know, business people would rather invest where you have bad laws, but you have certainty, you have clarity. For over 10 years, the issue of the Petroleum Industry Bill, which is now an act, was in play. There were situations where they said, oh, the law was going to be passed in piecemeal. No one was sure what the fiscal regime was. Because when you invest in a country, you want to be sure how you recover your investment. So if the fiscal, FISCAL toolbox is unclear, then you'd have limited investment. And recall that the government cannot do it alone. Government started with concessions, then moved to joint venture arrangements, then copied the Indonesian model for production sharing contracts so that the oil companies will take the risk. And when they find oil, we will share production and profits as a country with them. But we were relying on the Petroleum Act, and there was a lot of media attention and government attention around changing that law to a new one for over 10 years. So no one was investing because I wouldn't risk my capital when I'm not sure I'm going to get that money back. That's one of the problems. And another problem has been the problem of theft and metering. I mean, and this is neither here nor there. You'd hear blames from government. You'd also hear from the private sector. You know, there were issues around a lot of theft happening and people even shutting in. People would rather shut in and not produce than produce. And between the point of production and the terminal, the export terminal, they lose a lot of crude. I'm sure you did see on social media about 2 years ago when the group chairman of Hess Holding mentioned that they were losing a large percentage of crude that they were producing. So those are challenges you will see. Lack of certainty for a long time. And remember, oil production activities have long lead times. So even if you have a new law, things are not just going to change immediately. People need to take final investment decisions. They need to do the analysis based on that new law. They even need to understand the new law. They need to understand how the taxation will work, royalties, how the split of government take and private sector take will work. So those have, in my view, been the major challenge, particularly the uncertainty and theft.
One other concern, you've raised it in passing. We're going to throw those data later on the program as much as possible, but we're looking at a situation where we'll think differently to make sure that everybody's on the table when you talk about vandalism and illegal crude oil theft, which is illegal, by the way. But when I look at the provision of the Constitution, which is under the legislative list, the 39th item, talks about everything that is natural resources and all of that, including oil, belongs to the federal government. But we've seen under other administration where we have the presidential advisory, something, I forgot it, the Presidential Artisanal Gold Mining Initiative, which incorporates miners in the northern part of the country to be like they get these things and then the government acts like an off-taker for them. Can't we model that in the Niger Delta region to reduce the level of theft? Because the numbers are huge. It's at industrial scale, so that we can ramp up our numbers in terms of production.
Okay, so that's a good point. But you'd have to also appreciate that the politics of oil and gas are drastically different from mining, generally speaking. And like you've rightly mentioned, both mining and oil and gas are under the exclusive legislative list, and it's within the purview of the federal government to make legislation. But it's not as simplistic, because recall, when you have oil and gas, you have what they call post-government contracts. The way you deal with oil and gas separate from how you deal with other mineral resources. And even the legal regimes are different. You have the Mining Act for mining other than petroleum. And for petroleum, recall that you're not talking about only liquids. You have natural gas. You understand? You have both liquid, you have the gaseous. But when you speak to mining, you also have to understand the historical approaches to both items. So you can't exactly deal with them the same way. And underneath, you have a licensing regime, which is quite different from mining. There are areas of convergence, but they are largely different, especially because of the politics of oil and gas. That's a universal concept. You know, we're members of OPEC, for example. You have what is your technically allowable output. You know, you have what your quota is. So those factors also impact oil and gas. Now, I think what government has tried to do, there's been a lot of illegal mining happening. And you know, these go to our balance of trade and balance of payment to the extent that there's a lot of illegality in terms of mining and sale. It then means government loses a lot of revenue, particularly foreign denominated revenue, which could have played a role in improving the strength of our currency and reducing the pressure on the naira, generally speaking. So I think because of these issues, they wouldn't necessarily work the same way. For example, for a long time, government at some point had joint ventures. You could compare it to what they've done with gold. But government could not even meet its cash call obligations. That's why gradually government started to move towards production sharing contracts where there were no cash call obligations. The contractor, one of the international oil companies in particular, will take all of the risk, spend all of the money. It's only when they make money. That's different from what you see in mining. You know, in terms of volume, value of cash, the structure of the market internationally. I think those mean that they cannot necessarily be treated the same way.
Ms. Oni, perhaps you could take us through the politics of refining at home as well from the international community. And I'm referring to the report from about late last year that 67 oil refining licenses were lying dormant. Besides that, there is also Walter Smith Refinery, there is Aradel Refinery, there is Buharis Refinery. Let's say that we're waiting for Dangote Refinery, and perhaps in a few months we would start seeing products from there. But what about all these other refineries? When are we going to begin to scoop the gains from the licenses issued to these refineries? And those 67 inactive licenses, what questions should we begin to ask the NMDPRA about their capacity?
Okay, thank you very much. A number of these refineries are already producing, but the thing around modular refineries a lot of people miss is that, and our key challenge in this part of the world has been PMS, what we call petrol. Not so much around diesel, save for pricing. It's been petrol. When you hear scarcity, it's petrol. Many of these modular refineries cannot get to the point of producing PMS. They'll stop at NAFDAC. Why? There's a particular equipment that you need to add to your refinery to be able to reach that point of distilling for refining PMS. Or otherwise you stop at NAFTA. And that equipment is very expensive. This is technical now. That equipment is expensive, that if you don't produce or you don't refine up to a particular volume, then your project is not going to be bankable. Bankability means no one's going to lend you money to be able to do your project. So That's one of those challenges. Bankability of many of these refineries. One, would they be able to find crude to refine? Do they have sufficient contracts? Because recall, it's not sufficient for you to get a license. You need to be able to get funds to build. And you know, energy and the energy sector requires a lot large financing. Usually, in many cases, you would have project finance, or you would have receivables financing, forward sale arrangement, those sort of arrangements. But if you can't show your source, you can't show that you can produce profitably. And one thing about refining, it thrives on efficiency. So I think it goes beyond licensing. I know what your next question may be. Weren't all of this considered prior to issuing licenses? Recall that it's a chicken and egg thing. If you don't have your license, no one will then give you financing. But if you then do get your licensing and there is no certainty of your products, of the crude itself, or whatever else you are going to refine, then you still do not get financing and your project gets stuck. So it's not sufficient to get licensing. You need to have a structure, a project structure that works, right advisors. Do you have even off-take arrangements? All of these are important. And then it then goes to the issue around subsidy for a long time. The financiers are then asking you, or prospective lenders are asking you how you are going to be able to get your revenue regularly at set times, because you have periods within which you have to pay back that financing. So many of the challenges we have, apart from uncertainty around the laws for a long time, has been inability to raise financing, lack of bankability of those projects, and at times the misunderstanding many people have around doing some of these projects. So it's not sufficient that you have your license. You need to be able to think through the process, your contracting, your funding, your off-take arrangement, your base product which you will be refining. I think those have been some of the issues why we haven't seen some of these products, some of these refineries come up. I know Aradel is doing quite well. I also think understand that the Housemate is doing well, and it's quite integrated. I think they've got their own crude, and they are then able to refine.
Well, I wonder if you can.
Largely bankability for me.
Right. I wonder if you can predict my next question, Dr. Oni, because you seem to be seeing these questions coming. But speak to this point. When we all talk about the oil industry, the conversation is closely tied to FX. Just recently, the CBN governor talked about forex inflows now coming to the CBN. It says it's working with the Ministry of Finance and NNPCL to ensure this happened. Now, there have been reactions. Presidential candidate of the PDP saying, well, this is illegal. We've seen other people saying, well, this is the way to go. I know there's still that ongoing debate. But the way the Naira is going right now, the CBN governor says one of the reasons, or one of what they see as this stabilizing factor, is a reduction in importation of finished products, particularly petrol. Bukola has raised a question about the refineries. So there's a lot of hope that is resting on the shoulders of these refineries. Well, some would say it's a business at the end of the day. But do you see us, or do you think that's the right way to go, to keep hoping? Because some say it might not happen in 2024. It might take 2025 because they might not even start with petrol and all of that. So what do you see as a future?
Okay, what I see as the future is when Nigeria becomes a scenario where Nigeria becomes a net exporter of finished products. I think that there's been a lot of, and I'm not holding forth for government, there's been a lot of neglect for several years. So you don't expect that policies will immediately begin to bring about positive change or result. It takes a while to build a refinery, depending on what size, and that number of that duration would depend on the complexity and financing. Ability to be able to raise financing. So in terms of our forex, I think it's a fair point the CBN governor has made. For example, Q3 last year, we spent almost 2 trillion just importing, in one quarter, importing petroleum products. And it meant that we had to chase USD with the Naira we did have. So imagine that stops. You know, we produce sufficient crude and we're able to refine. That will reduce the pressure on the naira. I'm not saying that will be necessarily very substantial, but it will play a role. There's no silver bullet to this thing. It's different parts coming together, being more productive as a country, ensuring that our
Pardon me,
food
Dr.
is
Oni. My question also is, can that happen this year?
Okay, I was going to get there. I think it can happen this year, but I suspect it will be closer to the end of the year.
Okay.
The question will be, why is that?
Yes.
Why that far-flung?
Okay, so there are already a number of issues around even the crude itself, right? Ability to get the volumes we require. So a number of companies are looking to do more, produce more, because government has, the NNPC does have a number of forward sale arrangements, contracts is entered into in the past. That's one thing. Secondly, when you build refineries such as the Dangote or do a turnaround maintenance, you have your mechanical completion and you still have a process of testing and commissioning before you get to the point of then properly refining. And also, when you refine petroleum products, you refine them at different fractions. You may start with the heavier until you then get to PMS, and I suspect that that's what the Dangote refinery wants to do. So it's also technical. It's not something you just wish. You need to, there is a process you will have to follow to get to that point, and I think that's why it's the case. We're already almost midway into the first quarter, so if we haven't started now, you won't get into PMS this quarter at least.
It's sometimes when it comes to the conversation around oil and gas, I suspect there's a lot of mysticism sometimes. So we ask questions and trying to walk around those questions. So, but let's come back to some things that if we work on correcting, because for me, it looks like there's complicity across board, allegedly, because of the level and the scale. Let me read out some data for you, and you will respond to this, how we can bring this down, taper it down as much as possible. The NNPCL Group CEO was at the National Assembly, and he said 4,800 illegal connections are on our pipelines. 4,800. He says for every 100 kilometer, there are about 300 insertions. And then for stolen crude, this is from NATE, between 2009 and 2020, about almost over 600 million barrels valued at $46 billion were stolen. Pipeline vandalism between 2017 to 2021 came to about over 7,000. These are industrial scale thefts. There is no explanation that there are no complicity, maybe across board. How do we manage this before we begin to talk about the ambitious big dreams of all of these refineries going? Let's solve our in-house problem in terms of housekeeping. What do you think can be done?
Okay, I think it's about, so Nigeria has some of the best laws in the world, some of the best policies in the world. The problem is implementation. The problem is equality. The problem is fairness and applying the laws fairly. You know, when you find out that people are complicit, if you just hit them by the wrist and let them go, someone else is going to try it. But if there are serious repercussions for doing some of this, so it's not so much about law, policy, technical. No, it's about doing what you need to do. It's about punishing people that need to be punished. It's about applying the law equally, or the laws equally, fairly, without fear or favor. That's what I think the answer is. Nigeria is not about the problem isn't policies or laws. We have some of the best laws in the world. It's just whether we implement them. So I think the buck stops with the government, particularly with the presidency, to do what needs to be done and to get that done quickly. And I think that's what it is. It's not much more. Whether you want to use drones, whether you want to do more energy management systems, SCADA, you'll be able to detect remotely. All of that is government. You know, the military, the guys who enforce those things. And if people get caught, they should be punished. That's what it is.
You know, Mr. Oni, amid that staggering data that Jeffrey has just, enumerated for us, we also find locals involved in illegal refining crude, and the former Rivers State governor, had cause to rein in on quite a lot of activities of the locals during his tenure. In recent times, too, the Navy has been doing a lot of work in that area. But regardless of the efforts of clamp down on illegal crude refining by the locals, it speaks to a certain degree of a local capacity. What can be done to harness that potential, perhaps on a small scale, such that the people can be empowered and, we can standardize the process and reduce the pollution, the continuing pollution of the Niger Delta area?
I think you've answered some of your own questions. Provide training. Provide, and I think it's even a broader fiscal and economic issue. Right. I think that if some of these guys are brought in, and the Local Content Act, for example, the Nigerian Oil and Gas Content Development Act is implemented properly, some of these will reduce, because the Act makes provisions around employment, around capacity development, and all of this, and around reserving funds for development of those areas. So I think all of this should be done within a broader fiscal economic arrangement. It's not sufficient, and like I did state, we have good laws, we have good regulations.
Right.
Set up institutes, bankroll some of these guys, provide financing for them.
Right.
If people have capacity or competence, you just need to be able to channel same to more useful endeavors and useful ends. Even some of these refineries, maybe an arrangement, you even merge them. I mean, some people say they are not even refining, right? But you can provide the technological support that is required. We just need to ensure that and one thing I think we've always missed in this part of the world is combining the academia with some of this. If you go to Silicon Valley, you'd find out that, and I can't remember the name of that university, it's an Ivy League university, provides support to Silicon Valley. Well, so when government does have some of these policies, get the academia from universities, get the academia to support, get students. Right. So some of these guys, you just need to be able to bring some of these things together, some of what they refer to as refineries, together and have a system.
Quite important point you made there about collaboration. There's still the elephant in the room. We focus a lot on crude oil and the rest, but then there's a power sector as well. It makes up all of our energy mix, if I can use that term. The power sector, there's already been a collapse this year. I wonder if you're surprised or not. But because of time, I'd like you to just take 30 seconds to address that situation, the power grid collapses. Is there a solution to that? So we won't have, like, every month one grid collapse or the other, Dr. Oni?
Yes, we've had over 222 grid collapses in the last 12 years. It's simple. Technical issues, poor management. There should be an energy management system that would include a supervisory control and data acquisition system. I hear that going on. Also, we need to have spinning reserves. This is what happens. When you have power, it's like a pipe, or water pipe, or a water hose. If water leaves and there's pressure, if pressure drops on one end, it then falls. That's what happens. So when you say you have 4,000 megawatts and one or two key power plants leave the grid, it will collapse. Right. So one, you need to ensure that you have what is known as a spinning reserve. That's power plants that can immediately kick in once one goes off. One. Two, we need to constantly maintain our infrastructure. I think those are two critical things we need to do. Maintenance and ensure that we have a spinning reserves and also an energy management system. And I understand that the TCN is working on that. I know that there is a contract and deployment is going on. I think that in the next 1 year or so, it will become, if not something of the past, it will be a very rare occurrence.
Well, it reminds me of that song by Sound Sultan. When we ask our government when they'll give us light, they said 2010. You've given us 1 year now. That's 2025. Well, it was 2010 then. Now it's 2025. Dr. Ayodele, thank you so much for giving us some insight into this particular issue around energy. He's a commercial law, energy law and policy, as well as partner, commercial lawyer, I should say, as well as partner, energy practice group, Bloomfield LP. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Oni.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, we'll go to break now. When we return, we talk to one of those reality TV stars that you've seen on your screens on social media. Yeah, it's on the lighter side. That's in a moment. Join us again. Doyin David joins us on the show this morning, former housemate, Big Brother Niger, and also brand influencer, television host as well, medical radiographer. That's the part that a lot of people always wonder, wait a minute, are you talking about the same person? So help us to reconcile that. When last were you at the hospital? the hospital checking the x-rays and the rest?
I mean, no, I haven't practiced in a while since I was on the show, but I still go to the hospital just because I try to like remind myself about, my field. If you stay away from it for too long, you'd forget it. So I go just to remind myself, but I'm not practicing at the moment.
So that's your plan B?
No, actually, this is my plan B. That's my plan A.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can actually read the X. What is a radiographer?
Okay, so I'm a radiographer. So what we do is diagnosis, like the diagnostic aspect of medicine. Yeah. We don't really read we don't interpret the scans.
Right, so
we carry out the scans. Yeah. But because I've practiced for 5 years before the show, I can tell certain things, but I'm not like the best at it.
Brilliant. Fantastic. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, so yes, it's official. You might see her in the hospital one of these days, maybe even start your own.
Yeah, actually, that's the plan.
As well. Fantastic. And that takes me to the point. A lot of people see you on the reality TV show on social media, and the thinking is usually, these are people who they just want to trend, basically. They're always trending, and they can do anything to trend. And there's a lot of questions about what really goes on behind the scenes. What does this mean to you? Does the average influencer see this as a do or die? I have to find a way to always be in the news, either for the right or the wrong reasons, or it's just you living your life and being yourself?
I can't speak for everyone. I can speak for myself. I know that I've never said anything just for the reason that, I want to trend. No, I've never done that. I don't know if anybody does that. But sometimes, you can share your opinion and people will just be like, why are you thinking like this? I don't think it's anything intentional from my own end. It's never been intentional. It's just what it is. Sometimes you just say stuff that doesn't sit well with people and then it goes viral.
Yeah, because the premise of that question, I can't remember all of the things, but you guys trend every other day. It's either you're trending or Tacha is trending or somebody's trending. So you go to the trend, okay, there's football, there's reality TV star, there's all of this. Right. So some of the things that maybe you say or do causes cultural unease. Does it bother you?
It only bothers me if I personally don't agree with what I said at the time. So there's certain times you go on an interview and you're really overwhelmed. They ask a question, you don't really take your time to think about your answer, or the interviewer is being like, and they're trying to get words out of your mouth and you fall for it. So when that happens and I'm not comfortable with my answer, then I'm troubled. But if I'm comfortable with my answer, even if the whole Nigeria is unsettled, I really don't care.
Oh, really? Yeah. Even if the whole country burns, literally?
No, I'm not saying...
No, okay, I'm saying that to say, because you say, okay, so for instance, you had said, maybe at the spur of the moment, you had made a statement that you didn't process properly, and then, whoa, you see yourself trending all over the place. Right. Do you go back to retract, okay, this is not how I meant it, just to defend yourself and keep your reputation?
So the thing is this, the more you try to defend something, the more you put more attention on that thing. That's something I've come to realize. So sometimes it's just best to leave it. Sometimes I try, depending on how serious it is, sometimes I try to, correct, this is not what I meant, but people are still going to take whatever they want to take out of it. So I don't really spend that much time correcting stuff.
And it's significant that you are comfortable in your outspokenness, and you've had cause to talk about how it costs you not winning the reality TV show. And there's a big debate on the propriety of the TV show. But speak to us about the lessons that that show offers in terms of cohabiting with people in the house, because every time there's a season, there's a lot to talk about, the strategy that housemates have, to survive till the very last day and probably be the winner of the reality TV show. But what are the lessons that, one can take away from cohabiting with co-housemates?
I'd say the first thing that comes to mind is, before you go on that show, you are only limited to a certain type of people that you're exposed to. For me, for example, I'd never met certain type of people that I met on the show before in my real life. So I think the show just shows you, there's a life, there's world outside what you know. Like the people that are not living like you, that their reality is different from yours. So it just teaches you how to understand people, live with people, and just how to navigate life in general. And also I think it teaches you how to cope under immense pressure, because I don't know that there's anything that can be more intense than being in that house. So it just teaches you how to navigate life under very, very serious pressure.
But then there are some times that the strategy can be questionable. I read one of your interviews, and you admitted to deploying some form of manipulation to get the head of house role towards one of the housemates. So talk to us about that.
No, I think maybe whoever released that interview, probably they paraphrased it however they wanted to, but that's not what I said. What I said was I wanted it to be a TV-worthy moment. So I knew I was going to win, because obviously it was just one other person left, and he was obviously shaking. I was still standing. I wasn't even tired, but I just felt like it was going to be boring if we just stood there playing the game. So I wanted to do some form of negotiation, bargaining. I've watched a lot of reality TV shows, especially foreign ones, and I see how intense they are. So I wanted to give Nigerians a moment like that.
And give them, you did.
And I did.
Maybe we'll talk about this later. And we always try to link this conversation with governance. Right. You were head of house, right, yes, at some point. Once. And someone will say, well, you were head of house. How about you vie for some leadership position in government? That should be on your CV, head of house, big brother. So if I handle this well. But maybe we'll get to that linking with government. But after the reality TV show, I wonder how life has been for you, which is part of the conversation we wanted to have. The reality TV show, yes, gave you a platform, right. Drew a lot of attention to you, essentially gave you a seed, and right. then you had to maybe plant it and then water it, right. but it was an opportunity. So how is life after that reality TV show? Is life tough? Because the cost of living is very, very interesting right now, narrow to the dollar and the rest. So how is life after a reality TV show?
I don't think there's one answer to that question, because it depends on what aspect of life I'm talking about. If we're to talk finance, for example, I would say it's a lot better than it was before I went on the show. Of course, there's more money now. I keep saying it, there's so much money on social media. People make a lot of money on social media.
And you make a lot of money on social media.
I think it's a bit tacky to talk about money or how much money I make, but I'm good.
No, I'm not going to ask you how much you make. In fact, you could tell us. No one is listening.
Oh, really?
We won't tell anybody. That's what I always says.
But just to give a sense of the opportunities, because that's what this conversation is also about. Right. There are young people out there who are listening, who are looking for opportunities. So you can speak to that as well, absolutely.
Oh, right. If there's any young person out there that is thinking, how can I make money from social media? I can categorically tell you there's a lot of money on social media. There are brands that are willing to, pay you so much money just to bring awareness to their brands or to whatever it is, service they're providing or product they're selling, and people make a lot of money from that. But you asked about how life has been. Yeah. If I'm talking about finance, it's been good. I can't complain, I thank God. But the mental health part of post-show, I keep saying it, if you're not mentally grounded, and you're not sure about who you are and what type of person you are, and maybe you still have issues with your mental health, I would not advise you to go on that show, because as much as it could make you, it can also break you, because now there's a lot of criticism about your life. Everybody has an opinion about what you wear, what you do, who you date, what you say, things that regular people would do and nobody would care. So just know that once you come out of the show, you don't really have freedom of speech like that. So yeah, it's good and bad, but I'll say the good has outweighed the bad.
So do you think that for this generation, social media is putting people under tremendous pressure that maybe never existed or we didn't know existed, but with social media we know it exists. Because I watch a lot of young people on social media. There seems to be this drive about, oh, I want to achieve this when I'm this year, when I'm this age, and when I'm this age, and all of that. You are in the space. That is your forte. This is where you play your game. So do you think that the pressure is a lot, and how can people really manage it? I know you've answered it in passing, but I needed to reemphasize.
I wouldn't say social media is putting pressure on people. What I would say is people are putting pressure on themselves by comparing their lives with other people's lives. When you look at somebody's highlights, what we put on social media is our highlights. I'm not going to put myself crying on social media or myself losing a deal. I'm going to announce a deal on social media. I'm going to put on my best outfit on social media. So if you, as a young girl or young guy, you're sitting in your house and you're comparing my highlights to your regular day-to-day, that would put you under immense pressure. So that's what I would say puts pressure on people. It's not really social media, because social media, as much as it shows you, oh, there's so much you can achieve out of life and you can make out of life, it just depends on what you decide to take out of it. You can look at...
Being a reality TV star, is it not fair enough that you put out reality, not just endorsements, how good you look at your pictures, like I woke up fire, I woke up like this. What about doing without the makeup and all? Just to give the young people a sense of, okay, this is not all shades of gold.
Right. The thing is this, I am a reality TV star. I was on a reality TV show. At the time, I was expected to live my life in front of people. Now, I'm not really expected to live every day of my life in front of people. I have the right to choose what I decide to put out there. But there are times that I, share certain things with people, like, oh, there was a day I was having a really bad day. I put it on my Snapchat. I'm like, oh, I'm having a bad day. I lost a deal, just to let people know that everything is not peaches and roses all the time. But they cannot get the true every day of my life. They can't get it, because I'm just not going to put that type of stuff out there. And because there's also a lot of judgment, especially in this part of the world. If you put out something that people should say, oh, you know what, I sympathize with this person, or I've learned something, they'll attack you for it. So we're not really encouraging people to put out the reality. Well, we feed people what they want to see, and what they want to see is the glitz and glamour, so we show them that.
So does this attack make you combat ready all the time? Tell us the truth.
No, I don't think the attack makes me combat ready. I'm naturally combat ready all the time. Yeah, so if you're bringing it funny, you get it funny. That's just my personality. It has nothing to do with social media.
I'm sorry, what does that mean, please?
What does that mean?
Like if you were to say something funny, that I would think that, oh, you're trying to say this to mock me or to get a reaction out of me, you wouldn't like my response too. So if you can dish it, you should be able to take it. That's just the way I live my life.
Well, I'm tempted to speak a Yoruba proverb right now, but I don't think I can translate it, so I'll just leave it. But, simply put, no grief for anybody, as we began saying at the beginning of this year. But you've said something very, very significant, about, how we show our destination and we don't show our journey to people on social media, and we shouldn't be carried away. Particularly those people who see you as a role model. But there's also something that is just as significant, which is what the reality TV show has done for you. I mean, you just said what your plan A was and your plan B, and eventually you would start your own medical laboratory. But first, it was the Big Brother show that brought you this far. Right. So it speaks to a lot of possibilities about the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I want you to speak to us about that, and particularly about the hue and cry anytime the Big Brother show is about to start. People talk about the propriety, the content, that is not too appropriate for broadcasts some of the times that come from the Big Brother show. How can that be changed such that it can be more acceptable, to the generality of viewers?
The thing is, first of all, I want to speak on the platform. It's an amazing platform, just like you said. I would forever be grateful to that platform, because I would say it changed my life. If you're looking to... I was really bored with my career, and I wanted something, that allowed me to express my personality a bit more, and that's what the show gave to me. But what I would say is, before going on that show, you need to have a clear plan of what you want to do when you come out. Because, it has given you this platform, this exposure. You need to make something out of it. That exposure is not going to make you money. So it's a seed you either choose to water, just like you said, and then you reap the fruits. But if you just go on the show and you come out and you don't even have an idea what you want to do with your life, you're going to go back to where you were before. And people talking about the content that they get from the show, I really get confused when people say, oh, why are we doing this show? What does it really teach us? I think there's so much to gain from that show. We have a lot of quiz, competitions, presentations that people can learn from, even like just the day-to-day, how to deal with people, how to navigate life. That show also teaches you a lot about yourself. So as a viewer, you take whatever you want to take out of it. You can decide to focus on when we're being educated. You can decide to focus on when we're partying. You can decide to focus on, oh, this is somebody I relate to. I like the way this person is. You can, take something from what you're watching, something positive. So at the end of the day, I don't know that there's anything that they can do that would make it, this is a serious show that everybody should watch. It's just watch it and take whatever it is that you can take out of it. That's just it.
Okay. Let me just ask you.
Are you ready for your trivia? I wanted to throw in one.
Okay.
No, go ahead. No,
all
go
right.
ahead.
So just before we get into the trivia, starter pack for, content creation, thriving on social media. What are the, if you could mention 5 things that you need to have a lock on if you thrive
on social media?
Yeah, to thrive on, what would those 5 things be?
I'd say the first thing is you have to get rid of fear. The fear of, oh, let me not say this or let me not do this. People will judge me. The truth is not everybody would accept you. You would have your audience. You need to be strong-minded and say, okay, you know what, this is what I want to put out. And I'm going to put it out regardless of whatever comes. Of course, there should be balance. You should also check, okay, is this too negative? So just get rid of fear.
What about the intellectual rigor? All of that, does that go into the process of putting out those things as well?
The what? Sorry, can you
Intellectual rigor. So I want to put out something. Naturally, if I want to put out something, an average person, you do some research. If you're putting out data, for example, you can do research. People can just say, everybody in Nigeria is mad.
No. Of course, you should check what you're putting out there because you have an audience, right? You can't just put out anything. But when you're sure that this is what I want to put out there, stand your ground. Because at first, people might not be accepting of it, but they'll come around. So I'd say that's number one. Then find your niche. What do you want to be known for? Are you a fashion influencer? Are you a lifestyle influencer? Find your niche. Are you going to be somebody that talks about like the corporate world, corporate businesses? That's important. And what else? I can only think of 2 things right now.
Okay. 2 words, actually.
Yeah.
So let's get
the brand.
Tuesday trivia.
The glamour as well.
Wants to bring the trivia.
The
but there's one question on my chest. I need to let it out.
Oh, my goodness.
Do you live on the island or the mainland?
Oh, yeah. We're not talking about this thing again. Just so you know. We are not going to get us to talk about it
because those are some of the things that are causing what I termed as cultural unease. When someone say, I can't date a guy from the mainland. Are you comfortable with such assertions, or you just maybe think that it's just for traction or just vibing?
Have you watched the interview where I said that? I'm sure you've watched it. That's what you're asking.
I'm not even sure.
I
don't know whether it's you. No, you're not the only one. You're not the only one who said it.
Oh, really?
I think it wasn't even you I was referring to. I think, what's her name now? I forgot.
I'm not sure I believe you.
No. Another reality TV star came to me. The one that was doing with, what's her name now? The DJ girl. I've forgotten her full name now.
Tolani Baj?
I think so. I was thinking she was the one. So maybe I'm mixing both of you. So,
no, I
but
was
were you the one that said it?
Yeah, I was the one that did the interview.
I thought it was Tolani actually.
Yeah, but I just think that topic is overflogged at this point. Whoever needs more clarification on that topic can go back to that interview and watch it. But I'm not going to speak on it.
You can make the clarification. Won't tell anybody.
No, I'm not interested.
She says she's combat ready, so it's fine. I will take it at that. But these are some of the conversations we look at and we say, okay, young people are listening. Are they going to assimilate or condense this at the end of the day? Hey,
can I say something on that?
Yeah, no, it's
love
fine.
Has no demography. It has no region. You can't find love anywhere. Living on the mainland, living on the island doesn't mean that you're poor or you're not poor.
There you go.
Find whatever works for you and stick to it.
No, an explanation like, well, it's my preference. I choose to date a guy from the island. It's fine. It's your exclusive preserve.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's no fight inside. Okay.
No fight. Nobody's fighting.
All right. For the record, let's just go to the trivia. We have just about a minute to end the show right now. So you have a few questions. and there's a Super Eagles jersey up for grabs.
Okay.
In support of Super Eagles, obviously.
Don't ask me difficult questions.
That's the idea.
Hey, you're a radiographer, medical. Do you know what it takes?
I haven't practiced in how many years?
But
I'm just saying
Take
that
that into
5 years.
I'm saying it takes
consideration
a lot
too.
of work to even get that certificate. So,
True.
first question is, when will the president's term elapse? What year will the president's term elapse? The
What
current
year?
president. Yeah, the first term.
First term is 4 years, right? So is it not? It's 4 years, but they usually go 2 terms, and nobody has ever gone 1 term.
So when will the first term elapse?
He said last year. That was
So 4 years, you got that actually.
yeah, 4 years.
Who's the IG of police?
I do not know that man. I'm so sorry. That's just the truth. I don't know.
Nigeria has a Nobel laureate. What's his name?
Nigeria has what?
A Nobel laureate. What's his name?
Again, I do not know. I'm in entertainment. Ask me about entertainment. How? Is okay. You know what? I need to come and ask you about. Let me ask you about radiology and let's see if you can answer the question. So what part of the body goes in first when you want to do a CT scan?
So this
Tell
is
me.
the part where you give them back, I imagine.
No, because you're asking me things that are not in my field.
She already
You're
said
asking things that are not in
she
your
already
it's
said
general-
she's
it's
naturally
general
combat
question.
ready.
So let me give you the clue to the
always.
Nobel laureate. He's into literature. He's got the iconic white, grey hair. I think he's actually white.
He's not afraid of
yeah.
basketballs from young people.
Yeah, he's not afraid of basketballs from young people. He's a professor, the Nobel laureate.
Is it Wole Soyinka?
Ladies and gentlemen,
Look
put
at
your
me
hands
just being
together.
smart.
All right, we'll have to thank you so much. You still get the Super Eagles jersey.
Oh, thank
because
you.
you got the
You're
Nobel
very
laureate,
generous. Thank
right?
you so much.
And please wear it when you're watching the match tomorrow, so that
I will.
And take a
I
picture.
will.
Take a picture.
I will.
with and post with the hashtag CTV Morning Brief.
Okay.
that'll be
I
kind.
will.
Doisola David, thank you so much. It's been an
you
absolute
for
pleasure
having
speaking
me.
with you. You
Thank
have a TV show you put on your social media as well?
Yes.
I will have asked you to ask us questions, but we have to run.
But you haven't
right
watched
now.
it, so you wouldn't even get it right. So
I
it's
have
okay.
watched it actually.
Okay,
So
we'll
you
see.
need to apologize for that. Doisola David, thank you so much for your time. It's
Thank
been a
you.
pleasure
Thank
having you
you.
on the show. Whew. So there you go. That's the show for this morning. We have to run literally right now. I'm Kayode Okikiolu.
And Jeffrey Uzongo, thank you so much for being part of the show.
Indeed, we'll be back again tomorrow. Thank you so much for being our companion today. I am Bukola Koka.